Welcome back, everybody. Today we've got something that falls in the category of the devices that I talked about when I looked at that USB-C SATA dongle, but is at the other end of the spectrum. So this is a Pcie M.2 NVMe to USB-C docking station reader 1-bay. So this comes from RIITOP. There were a couple of, let me power on the test bench while I'm talking. A couple of different models I looked at, but this one stood out to me based on the form factor it inhabits, and we'll get to that in a second. So we're gonna just pretty basic boxing, company name, computer accessories, no real indication of what it is till we get to the back. And this is adhered via sticker, so they're using this packaging for a variety of different items. But this is the NVMe 2DT, USB 10 gig, compatible with PCIe M.2 2230 426080. Realistically, anything that conforms to that M.2 M key interface is going to work regardless of its length or width. Not that you traditionally see many consumer SSDs beyond 2280. There are enterprise drives that will be 22110, and those typically just have power loss capacity. Let's see, we get the docking station, C to C cable, C to A adapter. Instructions are pretty straightforward, and it says do not support any SATA-based B+M or B key SSDs. Which is the part that I'm kind of bummed out about, is I really want this style device, but with support for SATA and NVMe drives. Alright, so we have the reader itself, which is in some fancy plastic, a pretty short C to C cable. Let's take a look at this, get it out. Man, that is some pretty sticky plastic they used. Alright, there we go. So, okay, that's not quite as bad as I thought it was. That appears to be a 10-inch C to C cable and a little A to C dongle-y bit. Which is probably cheaper than including a straight A to C cable. And there have been a couple of times I needed these, so I'm not too upset to see said dongle-y thing. So let's get this out of its packaging and get a look at it. And I promise it's more exciting than it looks. It is basically a metal puck. No non-destructive way to open it, unfortunately, which I'm going to leave it intact because I actually bought this with the intent of using it for a couple of projects. Let's go ahead and get it hooked up. And I think I'm going to wish it was heavier. Well, no, it's sitting flat. So basically the idea is that if you've got an M2 NVMe, like this one, this is Fledging's Feather M13 we looked at a while ago. And I've taken, theoretically, I've taken this out of a laptop and I need to copy some data off it. I just plunk it in here and it should just show up, which it is not doing at the moment. So let's go ahead and fire up OBS. My hunch is that I didn't leave this drive formatted, and if I go to the administrative tools under computer management, I will find an unconfigured drive. Yep, there it is. Let's initialize it. The request failed due to a failed device hardware error. Neat. Insert SSD, connect USB cable to dock. Do I have to do this in the opposite order of what I thought I needed to do? Insert the SSD, plug the cable in, OK. Initialize my disk. And we'll format it so I can run a benchmark on it and just see what it is. All right, we're going to do a couple of things. Let's open up Crystal Disk Info and see if it tells us who it is that built this adapter. It identifies it as a Fledgling M13 Turbo. Okay, so it passed that all through. Let's go to the device properties and see that this is a J Micron branded SCSI disk device. Not a huge surprise. J Micron doesn't make bad devices. However, they do not have the market reputation that AS Media does. So when we get something like this and the vendor is not immediately stated as to who it is, there's a good bet that it's a J Micron device. All right, and this should be USB 10 gig, so let's fire up Crystal Disk Mark and see what it does. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay. 1022 meg read. You know what? Let's stop that. I did not enable the better performance checkbox in the management, so the writes were just going to suck. So let's start this again. All right, so yeah, USB-C 10 gig results. That's exactly what I expected. The interface doesn't feel warm at all anywhere. It's still running cool. Let's see. I want to try, now that the drive is properly formatted, because it wasn't before, unplugging it, and then plugging it back in. Because although this will still work, let's see here, view, let's rescan disks, make sure that I'm not showing a disk that's not there. Come on, figure it out. Drive D's gone, it's in my hand. This still thinks it has a drive. Oh, we're blinking, we're figuring out something. Let's just... Although this will work this way, this is not necessarily the way I wanted it to work. Alright, so let's plug the drive in after the fact. Oh, okay. And there's new volume D. So let's grab a different SSD. Okay, this will be a really good test. This is my 660p. It's in the RICO enclosure, and I know that there is data on this drive. Although nothing I'm going to be too shook up about if this somehow corrupts it. Pretty sure that didn't work. Well, I take that back. Crystal Disk Info just updated, and it shows that it now has an Intel, whatever that gibberish is. And if I go to volume D, there is a Macrium Reflect drive image on it, which is the last thing I used this drive for. Okay, that's good. And the reason that that was important, not that this didn't work if I had to unplug it every single time, and I'm sure there's going to be times it's quicker to do that instead of letting Windows figure itself out, is that for a convenience factor, it's a lot easier to just go plunk than to have to fiddle with unplugging it and plugging it in each time. So that's good to see that work. Now, I'm not going to bother benching the 660p in it because we already know it's not a great drive. Although, according to Crystal Disk Info, mine's still at 99% health. So I guess I can't rag on it too much, even though it's only got 8 TBW. I've been fairly gentle with it compared to some of the internal SSDs I have. This is such a obtuse design. This little brass insert lines up with the hole, and then I put the screw into it instead of just screwing into a threaded piece that's permanently affixed to the PCB. It's just a weird way to handle this. Anyway, so that's the RIITOP Usbc NVMe adapter. And actually watching me fight with the Ricoh, that's part of why I wanted one like this, even though this costs more. You can get an enclosure like this one for, I'm going to say $20 to $30, depending on a few factors. I think the Ricoh was in like the $25 price bracket, if memory serves. There'll be a link to its review in the description, because this is still a good enclosure. Gripes about that little brass ferrule notwithstanding. But when I'm dealing with drives that I'm not permanently using, that I just want to make a copy of now, that I'm going to clone and then not touch for another 6 months. Something like this is far more convenient to have on my desk than something that this, if I don't screw that nut in, well, the drive actually has popped loose on me before when I've tried to just use it for a quick copy like that. So that's what this is for. That's my target use case here. And that pairs well with, if you saw it, there was that video I demonstrated how to use Macrium Reflect to clone a drive. Well, something like this is the kind of tool I would recommend for cloning NVMe SSDs. So, anyway, final thoughts. The material's nice. It's small enough to keep in my bag. The included cable is long enough to use with my laptop, but probably not when I'm going to use at my desk. I'm probably going to use a much longer Type A to Type C cable just because of the port replicator that I have with my ThinkPad right now. If I had something newer, I'd probably just use a C to C cable, but this is too short for that type of application. A lot of those, you know, your port replicators are roughly this size, and if I've got a port here and it extends to there, this is still behind my laptop. It's not out on the desk where I can use it. And that's not a dig at RIITOP. Clearly they've provided a good solution for their average customer, which is not me. Anyway, as I mentioned before, I purchased this on Amazon outright, specifically for a couple of laptops I have to work on. As always, I want to thank anyone who helps support Pocketables, either via Amazon affiliate or Patreon. It is support like that that helps make videos like this possible. I want to thank Electrix for providing our opening and closing themes. And finally, thank you for watching.